Cool. So we got people in the chat. If you want to, feel free to drop in what department you work in, sales, marketing, product, etc., as well as where you're from. That'd be great. The goal here today is a similar format to what we do in Demand Gen Live. So for those of you that don't know, let me get my, what am I doing? Okay, here we go.
There you go.
For those of you that don't know, Gaetano and I started, we worked together on a thing called Demand Gen Live, which started just based on, things going into lockdown at the beginning of this pandemic, and turned out to be something really special. We ended up doing it together for about 6 months. And it was incredible. We built a nice community. A lot of the faces that were on some of those first couple episodes are here today, which is awesome. It means that the information that's being provided is helping people and they see enough value in it to keep coming back, which is fantastic. For all of the new faces, really happy to meet you. And we're going to get started here in a similar fashion. So, G, you had quite a few topics that were more specific that all kind of fell into the kind of category of 2021 demand marketing trends. But just given for those that saw my post, I'm sure that you did this morning relative to I think some of the hidden challenges in rolling marketing up under a CRO. And I don't think we've talked much about that. So I'd love to get your perspective on if you've seen that happening, what challenges that you feel people are having, whether it's working, whether it's not. Would love to hear kind of where you are on that one, and for a little bit more context for people. So what's happening in B2B SaaS right now, I see it in enterprise, very large companies, and as well as companies that are more in the early stage, like Series A or before. It's weird that I don't see it a lot in the middle. Is that companies are getting rid of the CMO title and rolling that into a chief revenue officer who's responsible for marketing, sales, and often potentially success as well. And then there's a leader of the marketing function that would be at the VP level or head of marketing. And so that's what we're talking about here. So yeah, G, would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Where to begin? It's such a.
Is that the structure that you have going on? Yeah,
so no, we actually have a CMO, and we have a CRO as well. And so there's a lot of, as you can imagine, collaboration and alignment that is happening pretty much nonstop there. Mm-hmm. But I've worked at places, and I've consulted and I've advised companies that actually have this structure, as you're saying, Chris, where there's a VP of sales, VP of marketing, and probably a customer success leader, all kind of rolling into the CRO. And I've been there before. I've been the demand gen guy reporting into the CRO. And it's really, really tough, man. It's really tough.
What are some of the symptoms of that? What makes it tough?
Yeah. Well, think about a CRO's skill set and background, right? Is it marketing? Is it brand? It's definitely not. It's really sales and finance, right? And so that inherently creates tension, because they're really used to looking at things from a dollars in, dollars out perspective. And so and that is the kind of the anti of your philosophy. It goes against the grain with a lot of my philosophy. So what does that all trickle down to? It creates bad marketing habits, right? They're still very, very, very reliant on the MQL.
Yep. Being huge expenses on events. And by the way, for everyone that is wondering, regardless of whether events fall into a marketing budget, events are a sales activity. If you really look deeply at it, I know that marketing puts together the designs for the booth, but it is a sales event. And then you also get into a lot of budget being used in performance marketing, MQL type of stuff, because it is the most easily measurable and it most closely mirrors a sales development function.
Exactly. So there's certain things with the CRO that I think is easier for them to grasp, like, for example, paid search. That's a lot more nuts and bolts, right, for them. I think even to an extent SEO, But when you start talking about things like, we don't want to do sponsored partner webinars. We don't want to do content syndication. We don't want to do all these, the classic sort of
anything that's non-transactional.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. We don't want to gate our content. We want to remove forums on we don't want to have lead magnets. Whoa. Whoa.
Yeah.
That is a very, 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 very tough thing for a CRO to grasp. And so if the one thing that I think I had going for me in my favor was that I've kind of been, proven, right? Like I've kind of done this before at different kinds of companies. And so because I have the track record to go along with it, it was easier for me to plead my case as to why, certain tactics that have long been explained as the best practices by let's face it, the vendors, which are now growing outdated and ineffective. It was easier for me to make my case, but still very challenging in the long run because, when the CRO really believes that MQLs are a predictor of pipeline and revenue, it's hard to wean off that.
And that's not true, by the way. Like I was inside of a Salesforce instance today where the demo volume has been going down at a company and their qualified pipeline and qualified opportunities have been going up.
And dude, we've talked about this time, and it's so funny. It seems like the same themes just keep on resurfacing and rebubbling back up. But that's exactly what happened at this company that I'm talking about right now with my experience with the CRO, is that MQLs went down, and so it created mass panic. But then on the backside of that, you see bookings and qualified bookings going up, and you see pipeline and revenue increasing with MQLs going down. And so the real problem with it, and these were the exact words. Well, if we don't have a lot of top of funnel going, I have all these sales reps. What are they going to be doing? Twiddling their thumbs?
Yeah,
sorry,
man. I would love to brainstorm it. I don't have a position on this one, but we're actually we're brainstorming on this one right now, and so we should go there and talk through it together. Is like essentially like a lot of our customers are used to running paid social gated content to get $50 leads that never become customers. They love doing that, right? And we're trying to move them off of that to lower MQLs, way higher quality, way better conversion rates, lower customer acquisition costs. You need less sales resources. The problem is that what are they going to do with all the sales resources? So we've been brainstorming because like the effectiveness of a paid social ebook download or even a paid social direct response get a demo, the actual win rates downstream of those is going to be pretty similar to cold outbound. You know what I mean? And so like I'm starting to offer an alternative. It's like, save all that money that you would spend on LinkedIn ads to get these people and just go and get Zoom info. The second one that we've been thinking about is like, if you want to use 6 cents in addition to some type of contact acquisition to drive outbound, like what are some of the things that you're seeing out there where people are like, what do people do as an alternative? Because you do have these resources and they're not just going to cut the team. So we need to provide them with an idea of something else to do with those resources that arguably would be more productive.
Yeah. So here's the hard truth. You hired too many sales reps and you don't know what to do with them, right? That's just mistake number one. You hired you overshot your, your appetite there, right?
Interesting thing here is to think about why they hired too many sales reps. And I think it comes down to, in a lot of cases, mindset. But if you actually look, and I've entered into companies that have too many sales reps, the reason that they have too many sales reps is because the marketing is ineffective and sales needs to carry the entire weight. And so if you are able to introduce good marketing, then that's where the dichotomy happens. But they have too many reps oftentimes because they need those in order to have a shot at hitting their revenue target because marketing's not pulling the weight on pipeline and revenue.
That's right. Now at Nextiva, we have the opposite problem. We have too many leads sitting in the open queue. We have too few sales reps. So in fact, we are hiring now.
Little plug there for people.
Yeah, a little plug there. So we have too few. So it's actually the best problem to have. But where I was going with this, I think, was, my stance on gated content has changed quite a lot. So, I mean, obviously, we see really eye to eye on this, but there really is just one use case, I think, left for gated content. And I think this only works if you're in a business like Nextiva, where it's high volume, fast sales velocity, deals close in less than 21 days type thing. And average contract sizes are around $1,000. We put exit intent gated content pop-ups on our highest intent pages, right? So these are things like our, business VoIP product page and our PPC pages, right? And what ends up happening is people fill out these forms to get the content, and sales just calls them, and they actually end up buying. But think about why. The intent channel, we talk about this all the time. It's not like they were just browsing through their Facebook feed and saw some top of funnel bullshit. They were going to buy anyway. They were going to buy anyway.
Accelerating that process, and the process is probably one call close, very transactional.
It's often not necessarily one call close, but within a week or two they close, right? And so because they were going to buy anyway, all you did was take a website form and just transition it to a pop-up. You're robbing from Peter to give to Paul. Look at all these different conversion points on the page. You've got live chat, you've got the web form, you've got the pop-up, and you got the phone number. You got four points there. So all you're really doing with the gated pop-up there is you're accelerating what would have happened anyway. And so you're just robbing from one attribution source to the other. But that's the only real use case left for gated content, in my opinion. I don't know, Chris, if you agree with that or not, but from my experience, that's the only use case left.
You've been doing it, so I obviously trust your judgment. You're a really smart guy. On the exit intent, little pro tip for people: make sure you suppress that on mobile. Nobody wants an exit intent pop up on mobile. That's a good one here. And then another one is that I was thinking about, just as you said, that is like pretty much everyone's on the chat bot flow, right? And so I'm inside of 25 Salesforce instances. Most of our customers use Drift or an alternative web chat, and it's tagged appropriately based on that conversion. And I also hear about how people are celebrating the wins on web chat. The win that gets celebrated from a web chat, whether it's live, but most likely a bot, because people do not have the discipline to actually man that live and be responsive within 30 seconds when someone asks a question. And so it's usually a bot. The thing that I see is people are celebrating that we're getting more ebook downloads. When we present content with people, that's when web chat works best. And then if you actually look in Salesforce, anyone that's doing this can actually look, because the web form and the chat are running in parallel, even on the demo page, which I disagree with, but for our customers, they do whatever they want on these types of things. And they're running in parallel. And a majority of the submissions happen through a form, but most importantly is less than 10% of the revenue comes through a web chat submission. All of the website revenue combined, 80% plus through a demo form, less than 10% on a chat, which is just an interesting insight. I think it's important for people to start to understand that, because like I'm interacting with enough companies to see that, like, I don't think that it's moving the needle at all. It's what Gaetano just said. It's just robbing Peter to pay Paul. And even so, it might actually be creating a worse experience.
Yeah. I would say that, so back to the question of like, what do you do with all this excess sales, capacity?
Please,
what do you do? What do you do with that? Right. I've been talking to a lot of people in B2B, and kind of the conclusion, I don't want to say unanimous, but like the overwhelming conclusion is that chatbots are annoying and often are a shitty and annoying experience. And so what do you do there? You do what Nextiva is doing. We got live chat. People love live chat. They don't like the bot. Live chat is so much more valuable. I mean, you get real-time marketing insights. You can read the chat logs. You can see what kind of objections that you need to prepare to handle. You accelerate all this nonsense, right? You get the sellers on live chat.
Yeah.
Get them on live chat. Try and get that. And one of our top, converting like web flows, if you will, is like paid search to a PPC landing page. They engage with the live chat. Live chat gets escalated to a call, and then you start the conversation there, and then you work the deal. And that is, I think, going to be the future. I think some of these chatbot companies are going to be in real trouble. There's some that are really good at marketing. And that's probably going to be able to carry them far, because a lot of people and companies now are just kind of buying into the hype. But I would say bots are probably, I think live chat in the long run is going to win on the sales and on the sales side, and even on the customer support side. Imagine being a customer and you have a problem with like your very expensive SaaS tool and you get a bot. It's like that kind of sucks.
The recipe to get me more likely to churn.
Yeah. So, I mean, I do think that the bot may have some interesting use cases, maybe, like on a blog page, for example, top of funnel, maybe redirect you to this page. Hey, I noticed you're on this page. You may like these resources too. It might work well for e-commerce. Hey, I noticed you're checking out Nike shorts. You may want some flip-flops to go with that type thing, but I think live chat is just going to prevail in the long run.
Cool. So anyone, I'm sure that there's questions being sparked. I'm sure Angelica's looking at the chat. If you have questions, drop them into the chat. We're going to get to them soon. We have a couple other topics that I want to make sure we get to in terms of delivery on the 2021 demand marketing trends. And so, Gaetano, I remember us talking about this one when we were doing Demand Gen Live, and you were thinking about piloting Bizible. And I try to be as technology vendor agnostic as possible, right? Like HubSpot with enterprise can do a lot of the things that Bizible can do. And so it's just like, it's the idea of multi-touch attribution into a marketing automation system that gets pushed into a CRM. And I've been very loud about this for 5 years, that it doesn't work, right? Like it's not going to give you a clear picture, but I think that you've either experimented or somehow, and we'd love to hear what you found.
Sure. So I think this is like one of those things that is really mysterious and cryptic to most marketing teams is attribution. How do we actually figure this out? And so it's really hard. And so we had this problem at Nextiva where we decided, you know what, let's actually try Bizible. Let's see what the hype is all about. Let's see, what dark stuff it illuminates that we couldn't see, what blind spots, so to speak, that it gave us, vision to. And we started to see things like, these blog posts. And by the way, no matter which attribution model you look at, whether it's W shape, whether it's U shape, whether it's first touch, whether it's last touch, the numbers were all pretty consistent, like across the board. We're talking like, maybe a couple thousand swing direction, but nothing too drastic. So one attribution model over the other didn't really give you a greater advantage or a disadvantage. It was all pretty much the same. But we started to see things like which blog posts were attributing revenue, and which landing pages were sending assisted conversions, like the pricing page, and like web conversion flows and stuff like that. And what we ultimately realized was, well, we kind of knew a lot of this already. We actually so what it came down to was like, all right, well, so what? Now what do we do? Is this actually going to help us make a decision? Like what decision can we make from this? Is there any website change we can make? Any content strategy, insight that is going to, be a mind-blowing game changer? Oh shit, we need to create more of this kind of content or whatever. Actually, no, it did none of that. So we kind of just said, well, this is probably going to be helpful for like, pleading our case to the C-suite and like showing them that like the shit we're doing is actually working. But apart from that, how is it going to help me make an informed marketing decision? And it really can't. It really, unfortunately, can't. And so now we're just like, well, there you have it. And so,
and I would love your
that's
opinion.
Where we are.
You've been in here is like, my true belief is that it actually drives you to make the wrong decisions because it misses a lot of critical things, right? Like in your experience in Bizible, it's basically covering through search on a desktop computer. And I highly doubt that it's able to connect the dots on anonymous web traffic on mobile. Like that's not happening, right? So anything that's happening in other awareness channels, there's no attribution to someone listening to the podcast. We would have attribution to someone attending the Zoom because it would be in a CRM, but no attribution to listening to a podcast, to watching a video on LinkedIn, to hearing a good review from a colleague, to having a touch point when I just mentioned 6 Sense. And then somebody else goes in and then searches through Google and buys that. And they think that their blog post is driving the revenue. And it was actually someone just communicating the brand name to somebody else. Like, all the real valuable stuff is not trackable and Bizible. So you've seen a portion of the journey, and it's making it feel like it could drive you to do more SEO and potentially not more of the other pieces, which I think is dangerous long term.
Yeah, I mean, dude, the tough part with it is like, if you're, so here's the thing that I ultimately realized. If you're a good marketer and you have good instincts and good intuition and you good fundamentals and you're doing the right things, all Bizible is going to do is reinforce all of that shit. Right? Like once I saw, and now keep in mind, we have like 1 month sales cycles, sometimes like 1 to 3 months, like really no longer than 3 months. But some companies have really long sales cycles, like 6 to 9 months and beyond. But like when I looked at some of the, the bigger deals that closed and like the path and the kinds of pages they visited and how often, it was shit that we already knew. When they, down to the ad group and to the keyword level, I mean, we already knew this stuff. And so like, we really spent time just asking ourselves, like, what is there anything we can do differently based on this? And honestly, the answer was no. And so that just kind of leaves us in between a rock and a hard place now. I think it's great for like proving things out to the C-suite. That can be beneficial, but other than that, it's really, after experimenting with this tool now for about 3 months, it has not led me to make one single decision that I wouldn't have made otherwise on my own. And so there you have it.
Right on. So everyone, we'll get to questions at 12:30. I got a couple other quick ones, one of which we just found out about recently, and then you texted it to me and we're like, we should talk about this. And I'm since October, or maybe a little bit before that, I've been on the same page on this one. And what you'd mentioned to me is why exact match on PPC shouldn't be used or should be rarely used. And we saw the exact same thing. We've actually backtracked to a combination of broad modified and phrase match. And those two, and we don't target any exact match anymore because I feel like it's incredibly restrictive.
Yes. So there's many, I think, points to make here, but I think here's the bottom line. Exact match is inherently far more expensive. And now when you're in industries like us, telecommunications, voice over IP. I mean, we're in lawyer health care range prices. We're talking $150 a click and up for the keywords that we spend on. And not only are you going to miss out on the long tail with exact match, you're going to pay through the nose. And now what happens, right? Some of these queries are extremely short tail and they're big volume. But, let's use like CRM as an example, right? Like imagine bidding exact match on CRM. I mean, you're just,
probably 1 million plus searches a month on that with
and you're going to bleed
98% no buying intent. Yeah.
No buying intent. No, exactly. No buying intent. So the only place that I believe that exact match is really worth utilizing is if for sure that your sales team has like a major advantage and they're knocking it out of the park in terms of conversion. And that the buying intent on this specific search term is very, very high. Other than that,
CRM with blah, blah, blah feature that only we have.
Exactly.
Something like that.
Yeah. Something like that. And even then, maybe not. But we've essentially moved pretty much completely away from exact match. And by the way, exact match is not really exact match anymore. You still actually get some weird variants in there. So it's close to exact match, but it's not truly exact. But it is incredibly restrictive. And so if you're in an industry where, like, for example, the search volumes are really low, the cost per clicks are pretty low, then you might be able to get away with it more. But if you're really trying to scale, it's not in your best interest to go all in on exact match. I mean, you're going to just bleed through the nose, and you're going to get traffic for mixed bag of intent. And unfortunately, most of it is going to be research based. So you're just paying a lot of money for research.
And the key for people that haven't listened to other episodes before is to make sure that you have an intent term when you use broad modified. So sales engagement, platform pricing, sales engagement, vendor comparison, sales engagement company, sales engagement software, like the software pricing platform, like those types of variants inside of broad match are going to restrict the search to people that are only pretty much looking for what you're selling.
That's right.
So
Platform.
It's going to take down your search volume, right? Like you're not going to get the same volume as you would with sales engagement, but you have the amount of intent. And the only reason to run sales engagement broad match is if you're trying to get them into an ebook download for $7 and then not have any customers and have a lot of contacts in your CRM.
That's right. Yeah, you know, to cap off on this, I think the modifiers are going to be your best friend, the keyword modifiers. So stick to things like platform, product, software, system, service,
vendor, tool,
tool. All those things that show buying intent are the modifiers that you want to really stick to. Outside of that, you know, the last tip I would say is get really aggressive with your negative keyword list so you don't get a lot of junk. But once you can balance that, you know, getting the long tail that is valuable and not paying through the nose, and then cutting out junk by relentlessly really paying close attention to your negative list, and then you start to really get into good marketing, because now you can kind of shift focus away from the bidding nuances, and you can really get into the psychology of what's happening to that traffic when it gets to your landing pages, which is ultimately the most important thing. That's the real gold mine in paid search, is what happens to that traffic when it gets to the page. And then you really got to get methodical about testing that traffic, but that's ultimately what it comes down to.
Hell yeah. Last topic. This is again, like, it's funny. We haven't talked all that much in the past 3 or 4 months, and all the same things that you're seeing are a lot of the same things that we're seeing. So
yeah,
let's get through what you're seeing in YouTube pre-roll, or just YouTube in general.
Yeah. So we decided that YouTube SEO is the next frontier to conquer, and it's really interesting when you have a really good website content strategy or social content strategy. You can literally mirror that or repurpose that into YouTube, and so for very little effort, you can gain massive brand visibility and traction through YouTube. Now, you're not going to generate clicks through to your website from like YouTube descriptions and stuff like that. That's not going to happen. But there is an immense amount of search volume on YouTube for things that are very valuable to your business or products or services.
And Google is prioritizing video inside of native search.
That's right.
Right. So if you have a good video that answers the question, how do I do blah, 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 and you got a good video, Google wants people to go to YouTube and consume that. So they're going to show that up at the top. It's a really interesting kind of dynamic that's happening.
That's right. Now, especially on searches that tend to be mobile favorite, tools like Ahrefs can tell you, you know, does this search query get more searches or more click through on mobile or desktop? You can use Ahrefs to figure that out. But essentially, we've just been mirroring the blog strategy to YouTube SEO. And it's been fire. I mean, we've been just growing and growing and growing. And now look, this goes back to the other thing we said, Chris, like, how do you attribute this to revenue? I mean, you just really can't, but you have to know in your heart that you're doing the right things to educate a market, and that they're going to ideally find you first and come to you when the time is right to buy.
Right on. So on the pre-roll ads, are you running them? We have some good insights, but I want to talk through that because I think that is a really interesting strategy for people to think about as well. But I think there's a lot of nuances and kind of traps to avoid. And so would love to hear what you're seeing.
Yeah. I'll keep it short and sweet. There's 2 kinds of YouTube pre-roll we're doing. One is that cold-based intent stuff. Pretty cheap traffic, pretty cheap clicks. You know,
based on search stuff.
Based on search query. Yeah.
So for those that don't know, I just want to make sure inside of YouTube, you can target. So if I go to Google and I search, I need sales engagement software. I'm just going to use that example. I need sales engagement software. And then I don't click on the ad or the link or whatever I do after that. And the next time I go to YouTube, Outreach or SalesLoft could actually buy that spot to serve me a video about their sales engagement software based on what I searched. Yeah. So that's a really interesting one for people to think about. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, no, definitely. And in fact, I haven't seen many methods of YouTube advertising outside of keyword-based intent be super effective. I don't know if you've seen anything other than keyword-based, but That's essentially what we've been doing. And the thing I think about too is like the clicks are really cheap. I mean, we're talking, 10 cents or less.
The views are really cheap too.
Yeah, the views, and it depends on how you want to go about doing your campaign. But essentially, if I think about, would I rather put this into like LinkedIn, which it inevitably comes up. Well, what about LinkedIn? Right? That seems to be where, but the costs, and that's where you really got to understand, like, what is our price point and how insane do we want our cost of acquisition to get? And now if you're in the VC model where it's growth at all costs and we don't really care, then sure, bleed as much as you want into LinkedIn. Yep. But I would say, there's really no point in doing that when you can get so much better bang for your buck on channels like YouTube. So, and then of course the retargeting based pre-roll. Totally. So, which is fire. Retargeting based pre-roll to free trial has been really good and really cheap. So, when you're talking about growing a business through sort of consciously not bleeding away your cash flow, these are the things and decisions that marketers are ultimately going to have to make. And unfortunately, for a lot of like C-levels and folks like that, they just think LinkedIn is so hot right now because of all the buzz that happens there.
And the organic traction is there too. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, executives that don't understand the details would believe that LinkedIn would say, oh, YouTube, let's go to LinkedIn, not understanding that LinkedIn costs 80 times or more per ad view. Yeah.
Right. Now, let's not forget about this before we close off on the LinkedIn point. LinkedIn organic is really super effective if you're selling to sales, marketing, customer support. It's not super effective if you're selling to some abstract audience type, like, I don't know,
engineering, IT.
Like my friend, he's the CEO of a software startup in Miami that sells terminal port, like shipping tracking software. Like how are you going to get traction on LinkedIn with that kind of shit, right? Like you're just not. And so, close out on that.
Yeah. I want to give a couple other insights on YouTube pre-roll. The video asset matters a ton in the success of this. And so we're getting on one customer, we're getting demo conversions for $45 when we normally would pay somewhere like $600 to get a real high intent, good funnel metrics demo conversion. And for their $40,000 a year software, I'm cool to pay $600 a demo because I know I'm going to win them at 7%. And so, but you need a good video asset. We have run, because we have a lot of companies that do it, and companies will have varying qualities of video, from super high production, very well thought out, to stitched together, to Zoom screen share recording, and everything in between. And so the key is you need to capture attention in the first 5 seconds. You want to get the problem statement and brand mentioned inside of the first 5 seconds to then command the rest of the future view. And then the quality of the visual also matters a lot. So those are some things. If you're going to test with a Zoom recording, just expect Zoom recording level results. I talk a lot about lowering quality standards in terms of content. And this is, in my experience, YouTube is one place where you can't compromise on the quality and the thought that goes into making the content.
Agreed.
All right, here we are, people. Let's get into the Q&A. This is the best part. I'm really looking forward to it. What do we have, Angelica?
So Matt C had a few questions. I'll bring him off mute. Let's see where he is. There you go.
What's up, Matt?
Hey, appreciate it, guys. I work for a B2B SaaS company that is pure self-serve. There's no sales team. We target a technical buyer. It's not quite software developers, but kind of in that niche. And we're trying to figure out how to reach them, and in particular, wondering if, I know I've been listening to your stuff since y'all started last summer, and I have heard you say retargeting potentially is not as effective on paid social and Google Ad or Google Display Network. And just curious if it might be worth investing. Maybe I'm wrong about that. 1, 2, is it worth investing on our side, where once somebody goes into a trial, we really don't have any humans to help them along with their evaluation. And it's a pretty high effort purchase. We see these are roughly $2,000 ACV deals. And typically we see them close. It's a 14-day free trial. We'll see them close on average 30 to 45 days from the start of their trial. and it's a pretty high effort purchase. Like you got to get your team on board to make this purchase. It's not something an individual is going to make the decision on.
Mm-hmm. Is this a model where it's land and expand? Like, is there an expansion play as they grow, or is it going to stay at 2K the whole time? Oh, you got to unmute, Angelica. There we go.
Here we go.
Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, definitely a land and expand, although there's not a lot of infrastructure in place to get them to expand. We just see a super healthy expansion rate. We've got a negative churn rate because of the natural expansion that happens.
Yeah. So for the people listening, the reason that I asked, and Gaetano was going in the same direction, the reason that I asked those questions, because you need to understand the magnitude of what's an acceptable cost of acquisition. How much are you willing to spend to get that person in for $2,000 a year? If you're going to spend $2,000 and you're going to need to acquire a lot of customers, you're going to have a cash flow potential issue because it's going to take you a really long time to get that money back from paying users. So that's the reason why I had asked initially. G, I'll let you take this one first. You've seen a lot of products. We're doing some experiments too, but I'm interested to hear what you think.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out what the actual question is.
It's just like what do you think are some tactics? I think is the question from Matt. Like, what are some tactics that they should think about using in that type of like small deal size, self-serve only? And for a lot of people that are listening that maybe haven't been here a lot, G and I both come from sales-led type of go-to-market motions where marketing is basically delivering ideally high intent leads for the sales team to close. Gaetano comes from a place that's a little bit shorter sales cycle. I come from one that's a little bit longer, more mid-market enterprise, 60 to 180 day sales cycles is where I like to play. So yeah, go ahead, G.
Yeah. So this is definitely my sweet spot. And I will tell you that nothing is going to be better for winning deals that are $2,000 than organic marketing, organic demand gen laced with some bottom of funnel intent PPC. I mean, I just don't really know how else to go about it, but you really need to get the organic flywheel going. Without the organic marketing flywheel, you will not be able to you won't succeed. It just won't happen. Like point blank.
I am totally aligned with that.
Yeah, like because it's too low of a contract size. The deal sizes are too small, and so paying a lot of money to get $2,000 deals. Now that's a yearly contract size, so that means month. Like think about a tool like Ahrefs, right? Or some kind of SEO software tool that's like $200 a month or something like that, right? Like Ahrefs doesn't even spend money on paid ads. Period. Zero. All they're doing is brand marketing. They're doing the only advertising they do is very niche podcast ads where they know their target audience hangs out. And so you've really got to think about offsite channels. You really have your own channels that you own, things like your website, your content, YouTube, video, social, and then you have podcast if you're creating one. What kind of media? First of all, you have to think about what kind of media does your audience consume the most? How do you, Chris, it's the stuff you talk about a lot. It's like that distribution is so key. How do you get that content that's super valuable and helpful and useful and educational in front of the eyeballs that matter? How do you get them to consume it? How do you implant your brand into their brains? It's all about the organic flywheel. I mean, I could really rant on this for a long time. I'm probably not, I don't want to, derail the call too much, but essentially, because don't think about paid as something that's going to be a huge needle driver for you. Like you need the foundation. And without that organic flywheel as the foundation, then you start layering things on top, like paid search at a very low cost, and you start experimenting and trying to scale up. You use retargeting and paid social retargeting and stuff like that as a tactic to layer on top, sprinkle it on top. But you need that birthday cake, that layer. What is that? And if you don't have that, I would invest like all my energy into that first, before starting to think about paid acquisition.
Yeah, a couple things to add on organic. I do believe that search is probably a good place to be, but again, podcast, LinkedIn, potentially like either Slack, Zoom, even Facebook group I think is interesting. Like any of those things that are organic community based would be another one to consider trying, based, especially if your audience is niche. How do you be the host of that? How do you bring those people together without having an investment in trying to like sell to all of them? How do you give them a place where they can kind of hang out? I think is an interesting one. And then on the media side, the LinkedIn is completely out. You will never acquire customers at a low enough cost to make LinkedIn make sense for your deal size. That is out. I think the cutoff is 20K ACV to have a shot of making that channel work. Things you could experiment with. I think that if you are looking at paid, the only viable channels are YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. And then obviously like low cost paid search can definitely work. But if we stay inside of social, YouTube, again, the same caveats that we just put out. And then on paid social, your acquisition model has to be very simple and straightforward. And so if you're going to move someone to a landing page and convert, can they actually complete the flow on mobile? 98% or more of the impressions served on Facebook and Instagram ads are going to go on mobile. Can they complete that flow? Or are you going to need to capture their email address and then use email and hope they get to desktop and then actually complete that thing later? So that the gap on paid social for acquisition of like these free trial models is that you can get them to actually fill out the form, but you can't get them through the rest of the product flow. It's a very low rate. So your cost per, like in this case, your cost per lead would be low. I think that you could get somewhere between $20 and $100. The problem is that the conversion rate from lead to PQL or paying user, that conversion rate makes all the difference. And what our data is showing is that you're probably going to be less than 10% on that with that type of flow. And then you have to do the math, right? So if you're 10% at $100, it's going to be $1,000 to acquire that customer. I think that is best case. Like best case would be $20 per sign up and 10% conversion rate. I think that is borderline unrealistic. So again, I agree with Gaetano, organic first, layer on paid in the places, or you can do experiments in parallel. But just know that based on the deal size, a lot of channels are just not feasible.
Yeah, I would say to cap it off, if I were you, man, I would go all in on talking to customers and talking to free trial users who do not convert. You really just need to do two things right now. You should talk to free trial prospects who don't convert, ask them why they didn't convert. And for the ones who did convert, you should talk to them too. And you should ask them what almost caused you not to buy. And then once you have the answers to those things and you start compiling trends, then that informs your entire content strategy. And then boom, you're off to the races.
Right on. Thanks, Matt.
Good. Cool. Alejandro
more
had a question. Can I unmute him?
Of course.
Cool. There we go.
Hi guys, how you doing?
Hey, great to have you here, Alejandro.
Same. Thanks. First, thanks to Chris, Gaetano, and Angelica for hosting this. Is amazing. Great way to start the year. So my question was, if you guys have seen a trend on product teams from companies taking a more active role in demand gen strategies and conversations. The reason I'm asking is because I just took a product management course with this girl from Google, and I just see the blend coming more and more, like what you're talking about, freemium models. Freemium model is kind of a way to start bringing the demand gen in, right? So I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so in product-led free trial or some type of like self-serve acquisition, this is happening. It's just, instead of it being sales, it's actually product that's completing that flow. And the same friction points that happen in marketing and sales that still happen, but happened a lot more in the like late 2000s and early 2010s. That same friction is going to happen with product, right? Because product is asking for demand gen to do things that directly inhibits their ability to hit goals. And whoever is driving some of the needs on the product side forces demand gen to fill top of funnel with garbage, and then product's not gonna be able to get them through, and it's going to hurt their metrics. The exact same thing will happen in this flow. I had never said it like that before, but I do believe that those are some of the risks. What do you see, NG?
Yeah, I mean, nothing really more to add. I think, Chris, you nailed it. Alejandro, what's up, buddy? Parcero.
Yeah, the challenge here is just competing objectives and not understanding each other's space, right? And so like I find that, and I'm sure Gaetano would agree, I believe that my marketing skills are significantly better because I understand sales. And even when I wasn't doing sales, I took the time to understand it. I went to the sales training, and I went to the sales kickoff, and I went to sales meetings in the field in order to understand what it was like for them. Then I talked to them when I sent them leads, and I understood those things, which gave me a lot of power as a marketer to understand what it's like to be in their shoes. And now I do sales, which gives me even a greater understanding. And so the amount of marketers that understand product or vice versa is even farther than sales and marketing. Cool. Great question. Had never heard that one before.
Yeah, good one. Awesome. Let's see. I think George is next in line to ask his questions. Let me unmute him.
George, the OG. What's up, man?
Hey guys, can you hear me?
We can. Good to have you here.
Yeah, I've run into a few difficulties with this demand gen stuff, and I just wonder if you have any experience with it. So the main one is, it takes years to create a really good demand gen system. I mean, you got to do the organic, you got to be everywhere all the time, and then you got to talk to the customers. And that's, to me, that's the magic that makes it all happen. When you start to blend these networks together, the problem I'm running into is there's a lot of activity within the demand gen system. Like, every day you might have like 10 different jobs to do. So, I always look for, okay, what job can I do today that might generate a customer or might stimulate someone else, might start the chain going to generate a customer in a large network. So I did this for years and, increased sales by, I don't even know, 300 or 400%, traffic's up 2,000%, whatever. And basically that, because I can't explain where all these leads and revenue and traffic comes from, I know where it comes from because I'm in it every day. It's like the lawnmower man.
Mm-hmm.
But because you can't explain it, you're basically irrelevant. Well, we got all the leads. We don't need you anymore. The system you know what I mean? I've set it all up. It all works.
Mm-hmm.
I'm basically redundant, even though I know the activity within the networks generates the demand.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't prove it. There's no way to prove it. Like Gaetano just talked about the software. I'm glad he was testing that because I was waiting to see what it turned out because I didn't think anything could measure this stuff. You can't measure it. You have to be in it to understand it. You can measure AdWords. You can measure all the things that people can measure, but you know what I mean? Like you can't measure. What else can you do but increase revenue? How are you going to prove it?
And even with all of our customers that are the most bought in out of anyone to the way that we look at things, when you start to get it to not the CMO, but the other people in the executive team, they're looking for proof because they have been brainwashed by MarTech vendors to think that you can.
Exactly.
Right? And so so explaining it oftentimes isn't enough, which is sad. Right? Because in order to actually go and do the things in order to prove it, you end up having to do the wrong things. And I think that's one of the huge challenges. And then I'm kind of like reading between the lines here because I wasn't sure if this was part of your question, but like we get some of the same questions too. It's like, now the system is running, why do we need you anymore? And the answer is because you don't know what to do next. You don't know what the 3 next moves are, right? And that's the reason why. Because that system, when somebody, whether it's me or you or anyone else here that understands the system, like if G left Nextiva, there would be a negative trend, right?
It takes a while though. He's created enough value that it's going to last.
It might last, but it's not going to grow.
True.
Then that's the problem. So those are some of the things that I think about. Some of our customers, we don't have a lot of customers leave, but a couple of them have and forgot to take me out of their Salesforce instance, and so I can see the downward trends that happen over the next 6 months after we're not there anymore.
This is an interesting one. I think I'm trying to read between the lines on this too, between what George is saying. It almost seems like a part of the question too is there ever a point where demand gen is done? Is there nice. I think that's what I'm trying to pick up on, right? Like it seems like he's saying, well, I optimize these campaigns, lead flow is X. Is there ever a point where you've just maxed out across the board and it's like, well, I can't really help you much more? Are you ever truly on autopilot mode where are you ever in defense mode? right? Like, and that is an interesting one to riff on, Chris. I mean, I have some thoughts on it, but I don't know, maybe we could just ping pong on that.
I kind of think you have to keep feeding the system.
I mean, even if you have a specific thing going, you have to keep feeding the system. And then the way that I've been looking at it is you need to keep the existing part of the engine running that is working, continuing to figure out whether it's new creative, new topics, whatever channel you're using, figure out how to keep that system going and make that work better until you realize that part of the system is not working anymore, and then ditch it as quickly as possible. And while that's happening, you need to introduce new layers. Channels or you know, different things like that. So the goal is, like, people think that they're going to hire either us or it's actually any demand marketer, whether you're in-house or someone like me, that the results are just going to go like up and to the right. And the actual thing that happens is when done well, it should be stepwise, because those are sustainable, repeatable activities.
Yeah.
Huh?
Agreed.
That's why I think you got to keep feeding the system. You want it to be self-propagating at some point, and it is self-propagating once the customers get involved. But
yeah,
I'm going to clip your clip of that video out. I need it.
Cool. Let's see if we can get a couple more in, Angelica.
Awesome. Yeah. Let's see. Alex has a question. Let me find him. Unmute him. There we go. Hey, Alex.
Hey, everyone. Hey, Chris. Hey, Gaetano. So my question is in reference to when you were speaking about YouTube videos. So what's the best thing to show in a video to acquire more trial signups? We're a sales engagement B2B SaaS startup, so we're trying to record 10 and 20 videos with the testimonials of our customers, or should we start with some custom designed animations video with problem versus solution, like 30 seconds to 1 minute video? You must have tons of insights on that. Thanks.
Yeah, this is an awesome question. So to go back to my thing, and we'll get more specific here, the first 5 seconds are critical. The two things that we've seen work are case study testimonials that have been like professionally filmed and product videos. Now, on the case study testimonial, within the first 5 seconds, you want to be able to clip that thing and edit it so that the answer is, or the beginning of the statement is, we were struggling with this until we found this company. Like, that is the address right away. And you can have 3 or 4 testimonials that address a different pain point and run all of them and figure out which one works the best. But you want to say, you know, major pain point, found brand, all within the first 5 seconds. If it's a testimonial, I find that one works good. And then on the product side, I've seen some other people fall down with like these whiteboard drawings that happened from 2005 or whatever. Like, I've never seen a whiteboard video work inside of YouTube pre-roll. And so when we've seen product focused YouTube, I think an animation can work. We've also seen live video explanations of how the product works. I think Monday.com is a really interesting example of that, with people talking and then moving to SaaS screen overlays and then kind of going back and forth with a voiceover. Those are the two or three types of plays that I've seen work on that channel. What about you, G?
Yeah, I mean, all the same shit you just said, Chris. The best I've seen recently is Twilio. Twilio.
Yeah, I've seen that in Instagram.
Oh man,
fire. Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah, they've got some heat. They've got I think probably the best I've seen. They've got essentially it's animated product tour in 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. Animated product tour in 30 seconds. I mean, it just boom. And
the music is rad. It just like it sucks.
Yeah.
I'm not even a buyer of their stuff, but I love to watch that one. Let's make sure we can get a way to get that to the people as a reference example afterwards. We'll send that out in an email to attendees or something.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think anyone's better than Twilio right now. Monday.com is another great one. There's many others, but I would say in B2B software, bar none, Twilio is the best I've seen.
Yeah, and then back to the point, kind of like what we were talking about with George, is that video is only going to have a certain lifetime, and the key for Twilio is to keep hitting home runs on stuff like that. Like that video, once a bunch of people have seen it, depending on how much scale they want, like, 2 to 6 views total, I think is the runway for that type of thing per person in the audience. And then they're going to have to actually go out and make another video. Cool. Let's squeeze one more in, and then we'll let everyone get out of here right on time.
Cool. Don Raj submitted one in advance, so I'll bring him on.
Hey guys.
Hey.
So long-term listener of the podcast. This is the first time I'm on the live session.
Good to have you here.
Kind of hard to manage, the time zone difference. But
yeah,
I think like Rob mentioned in the chat, you have to show up when G shows up. So yeah, good to be here. I have two questions mainly. So we're a product and software development company, and we've been able to generate and capture demand with a good mix of inbound and outbound. But for a lot of our big ticket services like computer vision and robotic process automation, so this is coming under the umbrella of automation and AI services, we are fully dependent on inbound. And we can't really rely on outbound or cold email, because we can't really send an email to someone saying that, hey, why don't you check out RPA services? Because you need to be actively looking to implement RPA in your organization. And you need to reach out to us because it's a very complex process.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we are heavy on content and SEO, and based on the last few deals that have come in via our content and our standard sales cycles, it's like if everything looks good, we win the opportunity. But the problem is that these leads are very few. And Gaetano, I think you'll agree that no matter how good we are content-wise, there's a certain limitation there. There's only so much traffic that you're going to get via organic, and only the biggest players in the game, they're running ads. So it's very difficult for us at this stage to be running ads and keep it scalable. Mm-hmm. So one key factor for us going into 2021 is generating and capturing demand for these services. But I'm struggling to see what exactly can we do here differently, apart from this content, because that's just more of the same, and it won't really shake me. So that's one question.
Yeah, let's cover that one first, just to make sure.
Sure.
So my answer on this one is going to be, I think, just straight to it. So high ticket professional services need to be focused on a lot of the things that we're doing right now. Zooms, podcasts, LinkedIn organic, those types of people need a lot of education before they make that buying decision to trust. You need trust and credibility for them to hand you $500,000 or whatever your thing costs, because they're actually buying people, and the people that they're buying, they need to trust that you can get the job done. And they also need to overdoing it themselves. Right. And so SEO can be one channel, but I believe the biggest upside for you in any high ticket professional services company is forget outbound and focus on brand content and awareness channels, which is most likely for you, podcast and LinkedIn. And potentially something like this, if you find like it would be helpful, you could do something like this on your own and talk about AI and robotics or whatever those things are, right?
Right.
The key is to make sure the key for people like we're marketers here. But when you're doing it for like AI or robotics, the key is to make sure that you're giving good information to the attendees. The reason that people come back to these is because I have no intent to sell to anyone on this Zoom. And so you need to have that mindset when you put something together like this for your own business.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't think we're going to have, I'm just going to make sure, I don't think we have enough time for the last one, but I appreciate that. We're going to do a quick poll. I just want to get a little sense from people. So we tried a new time slot. We had a great amount of attendees. If we did this again in the future, do you think that you would come back? And you're not going to hurt our feelings. So just like a thumbs up, thumbs down. Would love to see what the feedback is here. Right. Cool. All right, G. Looks like we like get you back here for another one. You thought you were done, but you're getting roped back in.
Damn, you guys are suckering me back in, huh?
So you guys are great. We'll follow up with the Twilio thing in more details about when we can do this next. If we didn't get to any of the questions, feel free to email them to DGL as in Demand Gen Live at refinelabs.com, and we can cover them on a future Demand Gen Live, or we can cover them on the next time we do this. And so I hope you have a great rest of your week. It was lovely to have you, and hope to see you soon.
All right.
Bye. Thanks, G. See you, man.
Thank you, guys. Peace out.
Thank you.